On our Planning and Economic Development Policy Committee. So good morning, everyone. And we will start with the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Lawson and Councilmember Sundberg. Any changes?
No changes from my end.
Bergan, I wasn't there, so I'm going to abstain from the minutes.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. And you said no changes, Councilmember
No
Sundberg?
changes.
Okay, very good. And we'll go ahead and approve those minutes. And we only have 3 items. We'll start first with the development review. And I think that's Laura.
Yes, good morning, council members. Laura Perry, Deputy City Manager. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. Good morning. So today I'm here to provide our quarterly update on development review. This is for the second quarter of 2023. And so this morning, through our update, you'll hear an update on the work that staff have been doing and engaged in to improve our development review process and create a culture of performance and predictability. We will also touch on our development workload and metrics year to date and end with an update on our development review fund. So as a reminder, we have 4 areas that we are focused on when it comes to improvements in our development review process. And really, as you'll hear the word performance, we strive to be an organization and have a process that is high performing and predictable. And the areas are management and leadership oversight, culture and customer service, process improvements and technology, and then documentation, teaching, and training. And of course, overarchingly, our goal is to get projects to approval while meeting city codes and regulation. So I'm not going to touch on each of these individually. You all have seen these before, but we have completed a lot of these in 2022, in-person meetings, expedited review processes, pre-application meetings. ODA continues to hold those, and contracted third-party inspections. We've also implemented the TCO extension fee in 2022. And in terms of the Public Works reorganization, most recently, our permit center has been engaged in cross-training with our civil engineering to consolidate development applications for all public works within the building division permit center. And we believe this will be a more efficient process and provide for better quality intake and controls around that. And the acceptance of various development applications remain the role of staff within each division. And through that, they have been developing checklists, which we'll touch on in a second. For guidelines and reference manuals, this has been a big focus of all the departments through the second quarter of this year. So a few items to note here: our roadway design and construction specifications manual in Public Works has been an ongoing update process. The first phase was completed in the first quarter of this year, and the department is working on mapping out future phases of the roadway manual. For our UDO, Planning and Development Services has hired a consultant, MIG, to really take a look at the development applications process, but also guide future UDO updates, of which this committee heard the first set last month at our meeting. So you'll be hearing more from Public Works and Planning and Pros as we move forward in looking at our UDO and ensuring certainly that it aligns with manual updates that all the departments will be undertaking over the next year. To touch on a couple of additional manual updates, so the drainage manual, Aurora Water has been working to update that. That is anticipated to be complete by the end of this year. We've recently launched a small cell manual and guidelines and a fiber manual and guidelines that's available on our website. And that incredible work by staff on those very detailed manuals, which provide timelines and all you need to know about submitting those projects through the city. And then last but not least, we are working on updating our pros and dedication and development criteria manual. You heard from pros on that last month. The development community will be heavily engaged in that process and the other manuals that I mentioned. But for that one, Council will certainly see various code updates as we move forward. A couple of things to note on this slide, license agreements, we are working closely on finalizing language on that, and we're hoping those will go live. The new process for that will be Q3 of 2023. So we're very, very close on that one and have been heavily engaging the development community on that. We are working, again, to build an institutional culture of performance and predictability in the city. And over the last couple of months, we've retooled and restructured our internal working meetings. It takes all departments for the development review process to be successful. And we've been focused on cross-departmental quarterly meetings, which involve training and discussions around how we can improve the development review process, as well as what we're referring to workshops, where we have leadership and staff in the departments coming together in the same room to talk about improvements that we can continue to make, and breaking those down and workshopping them together so that we're not operating in silos. And that is going to continue to be a big focus of us going forward. Our customer service survey, we shared with PED in our last update that we have gone live on our customer service survey. And to date, the survey comments have been extremely helpful. They are shared with leadership, they are shared with staff, and they truly guide our priorities for our work within the departments. We've received a lot of positive feedback for our customer service, our availability, helpful staff, attentive to details, and available. And I want to specifically call out the building division. They have received a lot of very positive comments and continue to be our shining star for customer service in the city. On the opportunity side, customers are requesting changes and upgrades to our customer submittal portal. So this is the portal where customers submit their plan sets. And so we've been actively looking at that, certainly as we undertake the upgrade of our Amanda system. And essentially what they are looking for is better tracking of project status, file management, customer service around the system, and then supplementary to that, an update on our website, which we've been working on to ensure that it provides a solid, positive customer service experience where we have our manuals, easily accessible how-tos, handouts, and the fiber and small cell manual is just one example of an area that we've been working on to ensure that information is very much accessible and available to our development community and folks that need to submit plans into the city. And then lastly, I mentioned checklists. So checklists have been a major focus, certainly on our civil plans and drainage. And in Q1, our master and preliminary drainage checklist went live to the development community, and that has been working well. And then in early July, our new civil plan checklist went live. And we are currently continuing to evaluate the impact of those updates. And really the premise for those updates is to help with quality control and promote quality submittals into the city so that we are using our time efficiently across both groups to review those. Some future plan initiatives. So I mentioned our system, Amanda. That upgrade and conversion went live over this last weekend. Congratulations to that team for the many hours and hard work. Taylor Bird and Damon Hill and the IT team spent a lot of hours, and so far so good. I hope I didn't just jinx it. But there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. And this is, again, in response to what we've heard around a better, improved customer service portal for the city for plan intake and reviews. Across the board, Fee payment timing, we're going to be taking a look at that. We have various fees that are paid throughout the process. So understanding how we can maybe consolidate that and make it more efficient and effective for our customers. Evaluation of timelines and clocks. Our timelines have been in place for over 20 years, and taking a look at improving predictability in our timelines and how we can facilitate that in partnership with the development community. So we are seeking to take a look at those through the end of this year. Submittal requirements, that's an ongoing conversation with our checklists and with our staff. And then lastly, we did want to add, in recognition of the resolution that was passed by council over a month ago or so, to develop a development review staff incentive. So we are working on that, and we will be bringing that back to Management and Finance Policy Committee before the end of the year per the direction of council. So that's moving forward. On the metrics side, so this chart demonstrates our metrics year to date, or at least May through July, and May, specifically May through July per month. And a couple things I want to note on this slide. So if you draw your attention to the last column, 2023 versus 2022, year over year, you'll see that pre-application meetings are down, as well as development applications are down about 23%, and civil plans, of course, are down 22%. We have seen improvement across all areas of the development review process in on-time metrics. So if you compare year-to-date 2022, the column, to year-to-date 2023, and specifically the blue rows, you'll note that every single step of our development review process, our on-time metrics are up. And that is a sign of staff's progress in eliminating bottlenecks and working diligently to make sure that we're supporting the development review community meet their timelines on their development. These metrics are certainly a sign of the city's performance on the development review process. And these metrics are shared and updated monthly with staff and are a continuous part of our conversations internally to feed a process of continuous improvement within our departments, and are certainly a measurement of the development review process as a whole. One last thing to mention on this, each of the steps that you see referenced here in the development review process involve multiple departments, not just one. And so it's key, going back to my comment around having staff together in one room, working together to tackle these issues, recognizing the dependencies in the development review process is critical and something we're heavily focused on. And last but not least, our Development Review Fund. So as a reminder, the Development Review Fund was created in 2002 to address the developer demand for a consistent and predictable approval process for development, land planning, engineering, and building permits. And the revenues that support this fund originate from development-related fees for various plan reviews, permits, and inspections. On the expenditure side, we do pay for staff that support the development review process out of this fund, as well as supplies and contracted services. We are continuing to monitor workload and costs and activity managed by contracted services, as we have seen a bit of a reduction in revenues as a result of permits being slightly down year over year. And for permits specifically, they are now down 21% through July versus 2022. And we are anticipating that conditions will continue to improve as higher interest rates normalize with buyers. Multifamily continues to be strong, with overall permits up primarily due to re-roofs, permits on rehabilitation and repair projects And those are attributed, of course, to our weather that we've had with hail in May, and we're still seeing those permits come through. And then on the land entitlement side, these remain strong. And again, these are land developments for utilities, water, sewer, and those that are prepped for future vertical construction. So good there. Our goal is to end the year with 9.4 million still in reserves, and the reserves here are very important to offset fluctuations in revenue as we go forward. And then last, I just want to acknowledge staff across Public Works, Planning, ODA, Aurora Water, and I think I covered everybody. And of course, Todd Councilman and his leadership in this realm. Oh, and pros. I knew I was forgetting one of the children. There's been a lot of hard work and continuous dedication and support. There's a lot of improvements that I haven't mentioned here that staff have taken on their own, have innovatively thought through new ways to do business, identified areas of improvement, have come together and have workshopped things completely on their own. And that is and they're very proud of that. And I just want to personally thank them for their dedication, their hard work, and support of the development process improvements that you all have heard of, that I walked you through today, among others. And certainly, you know, with the workload remaining high coming through the process, their dedication to meeting our on-time metrics. So thank you to staff listening in today.
Thank
And
you,
that
Laura.
concludes the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Tremendous work. Council members Sundberg and Lawson, questions?
Yes. Activity is down, we see from year to year there, compared to 2022. I noticed real property easements were up 204%. Can you help me understand that activity and the reason for that?
Yes, these are various easement dedications that have to do with our larger developments, and those as a whole are up. Public Works, can you add any more specifics to that?
Hey, Laura, it's Jacob. I don't know if Public Works is on the list, but I can add some clarity. I think what we're seeing, Councilmember Sundberg, is a lot of these easement dedications go through a separate document process. So if we've got a large master plan, I'll use Transport out east, for example, in your ward. If they've got a master plan where maybe they're not subdividing large parcels at this time, but they're doing a lot of infrastructure work, they'll come in and do those easements by separate documents. So we might have 100 different easement dedications come in for a filing to get the civil plans approved because they're dedicating water lines. And so that's why you're seeing those numbers jump at that level.
Okay, thank you. And would you mind going back to the very first page of I want to look at that mission statement again there. Our goal is to get projects to approval while meeting city codes and regulations. But, you know, first of all, I understand this looks like a very your efforts are complex and involve so many departments and so many people. So, you know, congratulations on your efforts to coordinate all of that. It would be tricky. It's like working on the Apollo mission or something. So I'm looking at this very bottom mission statement, and you know, we're wanting to institute this culture of performance and predictability. A year and a half ago, it was predictably slow. Right. And we were hearing that from developers, despite the best efforts. And so I'm looking at this, and I wonder if maybe the word expeditiously should be inserted, or swiftly, or rapid. We need to be able to, you know, have a sense of urgency at times, yet being cautious to dot the I's and cross the T's. So I just wonder if that sense of speed in some fashion should be placed in there, a certain pace. I could be wrong. I wasn't around spitballing the mission statement with you guys, but what do you think?
Sure, absolutely. We can add that in. I think that's our core mission, is we recognize the urgency in the development review community around, you know, making sure we can deliver and meet our timelines for comments back, their submittals back into us. It's a unique marriage that we have with them. And so how can we work together to get them to the finish line is something we're focused on, and expeditiously, I think is definitely a shared goal.
Okay.
So we can certainly look, yes.
Because time is definitely money with these folks, right?
Yes.
And sometimes they might even miss the market by
Yes.
lengthy delays. And I've seen some of that, but yeah, thank you for all your efforts here. Nice job.
Sure. And Councilman, I should mention too, as part of our multi-departmental workshops, we do have on our work plan to come together and have a deep conversation about mission, vision, values around the development review process. And so we will certainly take that back through this process and come back to you all with updates there.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Bergan. Laura, thank you for the presentation. If we could just go back to where you have all the percentages, I just wanted to just dive in with a couple questions on the development review percentages there. So not putting it in a grade form, everything else is like A's. And then we still have like a C plus, 78%. So can you help me kind of dig into that? What is I know that there's some outlier factors that may be causing the development review process to maybe be at that percentage still, and maybe not in the higher 80s or maybe even 90s. Can you just tell me what is causing this to be at 78%? It went from 68% to 78%, which that's fine, that's fantastic. But can you just dive in just a little bit more of why that number is still lower comparatively to everything else as of date? Just some of the factors.
Councilmember Lawson, for my clarification, are you referring to the
Development review applications, the application piece? Is it resources kind of making that number a little bit lower to review these applications? Is it because the submittal of the applications are maybe on the developer side? Is that, is there corrections have to be made? I'm just trying to understand that number. That number is still a little lower. It's great. It's just, I'm just trying to understand compared to the other ones.
Sure. So development applications involve several departments, and we call those referrals. And so they'll involve reviews on traffic. They'll involve reviews on stormwater. And so the reliance on that, certainly some areas are more complex than others and take a little bit more time. So what we do is we dig in and we say, okay, why is this lower? What is this attributed to? And for this particular one, the traffic impact studies are very complex, and for our larger developments often take more time. And that metric as a whole impacts the total that you see here. And so we are cognizant of that. And when we diagnose what's happening, we look at third-party contractors. And for traffic, we have brought on third-party contractors to do traffic review. We also look at staffing and vacancies. So certainly that can impact this number, as someone's workload to review 50 plans may be a lot, and it takes them a little bit longer to get through the queue. And then also quality of the documents. So going back and forth sometimes with the developers on questions and clarifications also impact the metrics as well.
Okay, Councilmember Bergan, can I just ask, just a follow up? So just make a comment and also a follow up. With traffic being a really major issue to most all of these developments. I mean, Councilmember Bergan, I've been on council for 8 years. Councilmember Sundberg, you've experienced it as well. Traffic is always the issue. Is there any thought about maybe kind of putting a little bit, I know it's all important together, but that issue seems to be really, since it's taking the most time, I'm just wondering, maybe putting a little bit more proactive or doing something like that to make that kind of, I don't know, just maybe better streamlined.
Yes.
I might not be saying the appropriate.
You are spot on, Councilmember Lawson, and I will share with you, Public Works are having active workshops and meetings specifically focused on traffic. Whether that's, including developing checklists, how can we streamline the reviews? We're actively we have a couple of positions posted that we are trying to fill. So all of those factors combined, I'm confident will come together to improve that metric.
And I just want to say you have done tremendous work. I know this has been, starting with the red tape ad hoc committee and getting those comments from businesses and developers, and then just feedback from council, obviously. And so just really want to thank staff. I know it's difficult in today's environment with vacancies and just people having to take on a little bit more workload. So just really appreciate it. And I'm really happy to see the fiber and cell, small cell site manual being updated, because I had some constituent concerns. So I imagine that is to make sure that those contractors know our expectations, and yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, that was a huge effort by multiple folks within Public Works, Leslie Gaylord, Brianna Medina, just to name a few. So those folks deserve all the credit in the world for that one.
Yeah, Leslie did a great job. So thank them as well. And this, you said this is a quarterly, so we'll hear again for the end of the year, I guess. We'll have one more.
Correct.
Yeah.
We will have one more, and that will be, because it's there's it'll be Q3. So you'll hear Q3 in Q4 of this year, reflecting back on Q3. And then you'll hear Q4 in the January timeframe.
Oh, okay, right.
And that will be a year review.
Okay, and this is ongoing. This is not just this year we're doing this. We're going to do this every single year.
This is embedded in our culture, and we're committed to ongoing continuous improvement, which is why we instituted the customer service survey. We want to consistently measure how we're doing. We are doing better, but we still have work to do. Sure. And we have staff committed to that, and engaging the development community in that work is critical to our success.
Is this shared with the JTF?
This particular presentation is not.
I mean, I don't know if they want to hear the whole presentation, but it would be nice if they got the presentation.
Sure. We can definitely send this out. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important for them to also see the improvements. I mean, I know there's things that aren't on here that have been done, like the Mylars and that type of thing. So I don't know if there's a running list of everything we've changed. But I think it's important for them to see it as well.
What we can do, Councilmember Bergan, is we can develop a year-end report that really comprehensively shows everything we've put in place for the year, and then kind of does a look ahead as well. And we can share that with the development community. We have been talking about how can we better communicate with folks broadly, whether that's through a newsletter or a website, where we're actually having conversations about our website. So we're continuing to think through that, but that's a wonderful suggestion that we'll do, and we'll share this with the JTF, certainly.
And I think we're going to be the model again for the whole state, Colorado.
That's our goal. I want to be the best
in the
region on development review, and we've got a lot of folks that share that.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again. So next is the ICSC update. Bob?
All right. Give me a second to do the share screen part. And here we go. All right. Can everyone see that?
We can.
All right. So before we get into this, I've done a few presentations in the last few weeks. And at the end of each one of those presentations, I got the same question. Could you give us an update on sales and sales tax revenue generation? That is not this presentation. So I can do that presentation. I used to do those sales reports presentations. If you'd like to see that, we can schedule that in the next few PEDs. But this is really just about ICSC. In 2 of these presentations I've given recently, I've done stuff on ICSC. So if you've been to Councilwoman Bergan's town hall and or to the Planning Commission meeting, a lot of this might be repetitive, but I've reworded it a little bit to make it try to be interesting. So let's get into it. So this is what we're going to be talking about. ICSC stands for International Council of Shopping Centers. We're going to talk about the team that we bring, the schedule that we have down there, how we get deals done. We'll talk a little bit about the Aurora developers, and then we'll get into the results of what we got coming out of ICSC. So ICSC, you can see our booth up in the right-hand corner. This is pretty much, it's a 20 by 20 booth. We've been bringing this booth out for about 3-4 years, and we're redesigning this booth, maybe expanding it for next year. You can see that we do bring the heavy hitters. If you see in the middle, you'll see, and we'll talk about this in the next slide, you'll see the city council person, Françoise and Jason, and we'll get into that in the next slide, which is not moving. There we go. Okay. So we bring Jason as the interim city manager. We usually invite the city manager. Jason also went as the deputy city manager in past times. Councilperson Bergan is here. We also have, as you can see behind Jason, you can see Cesarina from ODA. In front of Jason, facing the other way, is Andrea Omenik. You'll see me in other pictures. And Tom Oldenburg is the one who sets up all of the packets for this, and Kathy DeWolf is the one that coordinates all of this. Bill Kiefer sets up all of our iPads and mapping. If you look right next to the right of Andrea's head, you'll see an iPad mounted to the countertop. We have 3 of those mounted in the meeting rooms too, so that we can go onto the developer map and show anyone anything they want to see that you can see on our website. And Bill Kiefer handles all of that with his GIS folks. Okay. Okay, so the meetings, we have 35 meetings in a day and a half. They're half-an-hour meetings, and they are back to back to back. There is no lunchtime. So these are the type of folks we meet with. Mostly these are the big box players, the high volume players, and we'll talk about that in a second. So we meet with Kroger, who owns the King Super brands, Dick's Sporting Goods, Walmart, Kimco. Kimco is a developer. The Southlands folks are actually very close to our booth, and we're hoping to move right next to their booth next year. We meet with the brokerage community, Crosby, CBRE, which is Coldwell Banker Richard Ellis. JLL is Jones Lang LaSalle. Sullivan Hayes, a local player. And of course, we meet with the developers, the Painted Prairie folks, and Washington Prime, and everybody else. So that's a handful of the meetings that we have at ICSC. Okay, we also go out there to meet with high volume restaurants. And so the reason we meet with high volume restaurant operators is because they produce more dollars per square foot than a typical retailer would. Let's say in a 5,000 square foot restaurant, a restaurant operator, a high volume restaurant operator can produce 3 or 4 times the sales tax than a small operator, and probably 5 times the sales tax as a retailer, and they employ twice as many people. So we go after the high volume restaurants because they produce more sales tax and employ more people. That doesn't mean we don't want mom and pops. We do want mom and pops, but they don't generally go to ICSC because ICSC is a very expensive show. And so it's a few $1,000s just to get in, and then you have to set up a booth and or hotels and meals. And so a lot of the small operators don't go. We meet with them here in the city, but when we go to ICSC, we're dealing with the higher volume players. And we'll talk more about restaurants in a second. Of course, Elvis has never left the building, and they had an unscheduled meeting with Cesarina. So I found it funny that Elvis was carrying a box of tchotchkes from the different booths. But the funny thing about this is the convention center is at what used to be the Hilton, and that used to be where Elvis was based. And so that's why Elvis is always at the show. It's just a funny little thing. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the results from ICSC. This is where we met with the Nordstrom's Rack folks and the Bolero folks a year ago in order to get the deal done between ICSC and this ICSC. So we meet with folks at these meetings, but a lot of times the deals happen between the meetings. It's very hard to get a deal done in about 30 minutes, especially if this is your first meeting. We also got the restaurant program deals out of ICSC. The last 2 years ago at ICSC, or 3 years ago in ICSC, we did the restaurant deals that you see down in the Arts District. This year, we were pitching the restaurant deals we're doing in the different wards, and we've identified 4 out of the 6 up to this point, and we have to 2024 to get those done. We also had meetings with big box retailers. 6 of them are expressing interest in specific sites. Normally, when we meet with them, they say things like, we're interested in Aurora. We'd love to come to Aurora. Tell us about Aurora. So that's just a general meeting. But when they start pointing at sites and saying, we're interested in this site or that site, then that's a whole different level. And so we've had a lot of that at this meeting. We talked to the brokers, and the brokers are telling us the restaurants are back and the omni-channel retailers are back. Omni-channel means that you're selling through a store, through a website. You may be selling through other stores. You may be selling through other multi-channel websites, or maybe you're on Amazon and you're on your own website. And the reason omni-channel players are expanding is because the non-omni-channel players are not expanding right now. Big boxes are slowing down a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. So the developers were telling us that they're getting a lot of action this year that they didn't see last year. Last year was kind of coming out of COVID. This year, no one even is talking about COVID anymore. And so they're getting a lot of action on selling and leasing, and the Northeast is starting to see people interested. The hot topic of the meeting were the value-added redevelopments. So for the last 4 years, we haven't heard anyone talking about buying shopping centers. This year, we heard, I had 4 meetings with investors who already own property in Aurora, who want to own more property in Aurora. And so kudos to the planning department and ODA for getting those people through the process. They're so happy with it that they're now trying to buy more properties. But there aren't a lot of properties available. Value add means a center that usually needs some work. So paint and spackle, new parking lot, new storefronts, and then the owner gets to raise the rents. And so we had a lot of interest in that. So, but I did want to talk about 2 of the things coming out of ICSC, and that's the changes in the way brick and mortar folks are doing business versus, and how they're doing business online, and what's going on with delivery and the restaurants. So the brick and mortar stores are now negotiating deals where they can walk away from the store or close the store if things just don't work out. That is a big change from the way leases used to be. And so these folks have all of the research we have and then some. And so they can tell when you're shopping online, they know where you live, they can tell when you're shopping online and when you're visiting the store. If they open a store near you, they watch to see whether you're going to the store and shopping and buying at the store, or whether you're still staying online. If you don't go to the store and you're shopping online, they're going to close the store. And that's why they all have the option to close those stores if you don't shop at the store. So I'm begging you to actually go shop at the stores if you'd like them to be around, because just because you're buying online doesn't mean they're going to keep a store nearby. That's called showrooming. And showrooming is actually going to be a trend you're probably going to see in the next 10 years when they have a store, but there's no stock in the store. It's only displays. And then you buy it at the store, but then they ship it from a warehouse. You're not even going to, there's not going to be any employees in the store, and there won't be any stock in the store, because that's the 2 biggest expenses that the retailers have. If they're going to keep that store open, it may just be a showroom where you could just go in, scan a scan bar, and then the thing is shipped to your house before you even get home. They're doing that. They were doing that in Korea about 10 years ago. And so that technology is out there. But please shop at the stores, because we do want the brick and mortar stores to remain. That's just giving you a heads up about that. Now about the restaurants. Restaurants have an advantage over retailers because you can't really shop online for food. You can get it delivered, but it's going to be delivered from a local restaurant. And so what's happening now, restaurants are now in the game of trying to create enough entertainment or of enough of an experience to get you back in the restaurant after COVID. The tricky part of that is Gen Z. Now, I have 3 kids that are in Gen Z, and they are into video games. And apparently, all the way up to the age of 35, there's a significant set of folks playing video games. That is their entertainment. They're ordering food to be delivered while they're playing their video games, which don't have a pause button for all of you folks over 40. They don't have pause buttons. These games go on forever until you lose. They can go on for 6 or 7 hours. And so that's their entertainment. The food is just something they need to eat while they're being entertained. And an entertainment at a restaurant is in competition with VR and all of the games they're playing. So that generation is going to need a different level of excitement at a restaurant to leave behind their video games and come to a restaurant. That is a trend that we're going to be seeing in the future. But I'm noticing that amongst, when I ask folks under 25, why don't you eat at restaurants? And why are you spending all that money on delivery? That's a lot of the answers I'm getting is it's more exciting for us to play with all of our friends in this virtual world, and eating is just something we do while we're doing that. So anyway, that's just 2 heads up on what's going on in the industry. And that's pretty much the whole presentation. So time for questions.
Thank you, Bob. Questions, Councilmember Lawson or Sundberg?
Yes. Let's see. Are we targeting, when it comes to restaurants, specifically high-end steak or seafood places? Not necessarily high volume, but upscale, higher.
We are. They are extremely picky this time around. A lot of them had to close stores that they put in markets that were what they thought were strong markets, but turned out to be just moderate markets. There's been a mass consolidation in that business. A lot of them have been picked up by other chains, and they're going to be starting to roll those out now. But the high-end steakhouse and the high-end seafood places are really being picky right now. We've seen the restaurant business come back, and high-end is coming back, but slowly. They spend a lot more money on those restaurants. That could be a $2.5 million restaurant just to build it. Their staffing is much more expensive. So we are talking to them. We're not getting a lot of activity out of the high-end ones, the sort of Capital Grills and those upper end players. And again, I think they're going to be cautious. This idea that a recession is coming, depending on who you believe, I think 50% of the country thinks that a recession is coming. They don't like to open in recessions, and so I think they're waiting to see what's going to come from the next 24 months in the economy.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, I know our family likes to celebrate some special occasions by going outside of Aurora to some very nice places. Obviously, there's the Gaylord for their steakhouse, but there's the parking issue and getting in the place. But I'd love to see that eventually happen with both those steak and seafood.
We would too, and the sooner the better.
Thank you.
I echo that. Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Councilmember Bergan. Bob, thank you always for the great presentations and giving us some reality facts. The one that you just provided about we're just going to be able to, that may be the future going into a store and scanning. That's really interesting. So thank you for providing that reality fact. I have a question for you. With a lot of the big box stores closing, like Bed Bath Beyond, I think the other one's Baby RS, I think they were all connected. In the city of Aurora, what is going to happen? If we don't get any buyers, or if we don't get any interest in these particular big box stores, because these are huge and they're in these plazas where there is a lot of activity because they have a grocery store, they have maybe some type of recreation, a fitness place, or where other stores or nail places or anything like that. What happens? Do we try to do more to try to see if we can get interest in those areas? Or is it just going to be kind of a failing kind of area where we just have all this parking spaces and all this stuff, and then we just don't have anything there?
That's the incentive that we passed.
Well, and okay. Good.
Okay, but that's a big, these are big box stores.
No, that is for the incentive we passed is for the big vacant spaces.
Yeah, but what if there's, I guess, I understand that, but you said in your presentation, there has to be interest.
Right.
And that's pretty much where I'm trying to thrive, if there's no real interest, or if someone doesn't, a developer or commercial, whatever, doesn't see, well, we can really get value here, what happens as the city's perspective of how we would adapt to that? And with that being vacant or anything like that?
Right. Assuming that when you say there's no interest, that means at any price, we weren't able to give an incentive, they weren't able to lower the rent, whatever. So then it's now we have a vacant box, and the incentive package that we put together isn't necessarily working. There are a number of players that come into those types of spaces. The sort of the lower end one, or the spirit Halloween guys that show up every year, and then the Christmas guys, and then the party cities are now doing temp stores where they'll come in for periods of time. But in general, if it isn't one of those like Five Below players that like to come into vacant space because they don't like brand new space, because they don't like paying rent, or paying much rent. So it's what I would call the sort of the opportunistic type players that are looking for cheap rent, and they're waiting for those boxes to stay vacant for a year or two for the developer to get desperate. And then they can come in and get a better deal. They are expanding significantly, those players, but the hottest thing in retail right now is off price. And so that's why Nordstrom's is doing Nordstrom Racks. And so the sort of the TJ Maxx's of the world are on fire right now, because they have a whole series of companies that are all off price. And so it's possible that off-pricers start coming into a center that generally doesn't have off-pricers, that has all full pricers. And you may even see the outlet business starting to bleed back into the shopping centers, because the outlet business used to have to be 40 miles away from your nearest department store. And then Mills changed all of that and made it like they just started plopping Mills in the middle of municipalities, and all of a sudden the outlet business changed dramatically. So we could see outlet players like Rack opens in outlets, but they rather prefer to open in shopping centers. Outlets in general are something you do on vacation, or you do on these excursions to an outlet center, but that's driving, that's not convenient. So they're starting to bring those types of players into shopping centers. There's also going to be a consolidation. The better players are going to win. The Park Meadows, the Southlands, the Gardens on Havana, beautiful design, good tenants, kept clean, and those centers are the ones that win. The centers that lose are the ones that lose their anchor tenants. They're sort of a second-tier center, third-tier center, and they don't have the ability to fill them. That's where redevelopment starts, and that is a big trend in our business. But the local community usually has some say in that, and that ends up being a little more controversial than let's just knock those 4 big boxes down and put up some multifamily.
Yeah, and I just have a question. I mean, with those big box stores like that, because they have such big space. I mean, I was just recently down in South Florida, and I noticed that in some of their developments, they had like a big box store that had kind of went out, but then they had kind of like an outlet in there. But it was surrounded, it was kind of an interesting concept where they had different types of outlet stores, but it was encompassed in this big box. And that's just something I noticed when I was in South Florida. So I was just, that's why I brought that issue up.
Yeah, they're tricky to divide. The spaces are hard to divide up, but you can do one of those sort of marketplace divisions inside a big box.
Okay.
And innovation markets are opening in those kind of places too.
Okay. Thank you.
No,
And Councilmember Bergan, if I may.
Go ahead.
So Janine Rustad, Director of Planning Development Services. So Councilmember Lawson, other things that we're doing department-wide is looking or we want to do a study, a lot of it internal, looking at the retail we have, existing space, vacancy, planned in new areas, to make sure we're not over retailing. As Bob mentioned, things have changed and are changing. This was eye-opening for me as well. So making sure we're right sizing it, but then also talking to experts, because there's where the Best Buy was, which I would think is one of a nicer vacant area. And then we have some that are the lower class ones Bob was referring to. What can we do in those areas to encourage some revitalization? So these are all things that we want to look at to make sure that we are getting the best in the city.
And I'll add to Councilmember Lawson, her visit to Florida. I mean, I think that's kind of an interesting idea, is, taking a vacant big box and then marketing it to, and I don't know, Bob, is there somebody that gets all the outlets together, or do you go one by one to outlets? to the outlet stores? You know, like a Michael Kors would be good, right, Angela?
Right. Outlets come in a bunch of different flavors. There's the manufacturer outlets, which are the actual people who make the product. Then there's the sort of off-pricers that buy it from someone else in a liquidation. And then there's the discounters who are, you know, sort of Best Buy might consider themselves to be on the discount side. By the way, the Best Buy deal, I know I've mentioned this in other speeches, but Southlands did everything they could to keep Best Buy. And when I mean everything, I have never heard a developer get that aggressive to try to keep them, because they had co-tenancy issues where if they drop below X% of the vacancy in the big boxes, some of their other big boxes deals could change. So they tried, but Best Buy, for whatever reason, had decided to close that store, and there was nothing we could do about it. And Best Buy is the last player in that business. I mean, we had Circuit City go under and all of the other players. I think there's still Cons is still around, but that is the first business that really got beat up by online shopping, because it is always cheaper to buy it online than it is to go into a store. But the idea of dividing up those big box stores, that's usually the developer who takes a look at that and says, you know, throws their hands up and says, these deals are too expensive for the boxes. I could divide the space up in a smaller space and get more rent and do more sales. And so we would welcome the concept. But Janine is right. We are over retailed, and there are areas that are going to have to get redeveloped, or these value add guys are going to come in, fluff up those spaces and try to make them look exciting again. But there may be some conversions of spaces coming. And then, of course, there's the office business, which is a whole separate conversion possibility.
Yeah, and you know, Nordstrom Rack is in the, I forget which space they took, because Bolero's, did Bolero's take the Bed Bath and Beyond space?
Yeah, they took the bigger space.
Okay, and then Nordstrom Rack took that, I forgot what was over there, but you know, those, I mean, Southlands pursued those two retailers heavily. And I know I have, as you know, bugged them for years and years to bring us a Nordstrom Rack, but also an entertainment venue. And I think also some of those big boxes, you know, you had, I think, mentioned this in previous presentations about more experience-based type of, I guess, retailers, whatever, I don't know what they're called, but just really to bring more population into whatever center. So they're spending money as they're there.
Right. The first trick is to get them to the place. The second trick is to keep them there. And so they want to have things that run the full spectrum of entertainment. We did talk to Southlands about doing entertainment in some of their restaurant spaces that they have available. We have offered to, possibly help out with that if we could. But entertainment outside of the world of video games, entertainment is still lacking. If you're going to concerts, they are fewer and far between, very expensive to get into concerts these days. And people are looking for things to do all the rest of the time. And so there's a lot of different entertainment concepts coming up. We're taking a look at them. Bolero does have quite a spectrum of entertainment in their location. But yeah, things that you've got to draw them out of their homes. It is very convenient to shop online. And you've got to draw them out of their homes with something exciting. Having a sense of place. Southlands has a sense of place. If you just have a power center, it just feels like you're laser beaming the power center. You go into your one store, you come out, you leave. It needs to have a sense of place, of walkability, and restaurants create that.
Activity.
So,
yeah.
Yes. And people are sitting outside, and you need to be able to look down Main Street and see activity. And that's why outside seating helps so much. It makes it look like there's activity everywhere.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the presentation.
No problem.
That was a busy day and a half for sure.
Yeah. And if you want to say anything about ICSC from, I've been going there a long time, but you've been there a few years. So if you have anything to add to ICSC, please.
No, I think it's a good use of our monies that we invest in that, and some of those deals take years. So it's not just the one time that you meet somebody. Yeah. Oh, Councilmember Sundberg.
Yes, if I have a comment and a couple brief questions. I was excited to learn about, I think it's called La Plaza at Chambers and Colfax. It's the former Super Kmart being converted into what I might describe as a smaller Latino Stanley marketplace. centered around entertainment for sure.
Right, right.
Lots of merchants, maybe 50-something stalls for merchants, a supermarket, a barbershop, even dentistry and various services, but a lot of entertainment, even for kids. I was taking a tour and lots of games for kids, and they're gonna have patios and party space. And so it's great to see that entrepreneurial spirit, and hopefully we're working with them in a friendly way. I'm sure we are. And they want to build maybe a 5-story parking space outside, and it'll eliminate all the food trucks, which have been very successful out there, which I've even gone to with my daughter. She's a foodie. But a couple quick questions. You indicated, Councilmember Bergan, that we passed some incentives towards these.
Last year, was it early last year? No, I forget, but Southlands could not close the gap getting Nordstrom Rack or Boleros because of the build out and so forth, that they had to invest in the money. And I think Bob's mentioned before how those sought after, retailers like a Nordstrom Rack, that's a catalyst for bringing more good quality business. They play hard to get, and they know they have the upper hand. So the incentive that I sponsored was to help fill that gap when you have a large vacant space, but it wasn't just fill it was fill it with a marquee tenant, someone that would act as a catalyst. So it's like building upon, that investment and being able to produce more sales tax revenues.
Okay.
Right. That
was available for the entire city for any big box.
It gives us allowance to work with them. It's not really set in stone, the actual. Okay.
Correct.
Prior, there was a rule that said that it had to be a 500,000 square foot center that was being redeveloped. And so in this case, they weren't redeveloping the whole center, they were redeveloping boxes. And so we had to change the wording so that we could do a box instead of the whole center.
Well, that was very limiting. Okay, my next question, for the sake of my understanding, you mentioned omni.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
Omni-channel means you are selling in every possible way that the consumer would want to buy in. So whether that's selling at outlet centers, selling online, selling in retail, going and doing pop-up stores everywhere, getting in people's way, doing something in Vegas during a big event. It's starting to turn into just about any way you can get in the way of the consumer. That they consider convenient. So it's also the pull up to the parking space, and then the person comes running out with your item and then gives it to you in your car. There's probably a dozen or so of these different ways that people are getting to the consumer.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. Thank you so much, Bob. Great presentation. Next, we have careers in construction, and we have Morgan from the Home Builders Association. I think he's on here.
Morgan is not on, however, Michael is.
Oh, hi, Michael.
Hi, Councilwoman, and hi, the rest of the PD committee and city staff and the rest of the attendees. I am Michael Gifford, CEO at Associated General Contractors, and we are partners with the Home Builders Association and Morgan and his team, and glad to give you an update this morning. And with us to give the actual presentation is Lisa Seaman, our workforce development manager from our Construction Education Foundation, which is the entity that both AGC and HBA use to deliver this very important high school education. So just a couple opening comments and turn it over to Lisa. We started, in 2015, conceiving of a way to put construction education back into the high school, formed a partnership with HBA that year, started our first program in 2016, and Lisa will describe that in detail, so I won't do that. But fast forward to today, and we're in 57 high schools across the state, and we are partnering with two Aurora Public Schools high schools in 2023-24. And I just also want to comment, very exciting to hear all your development plans. There is going to be a massive amount of construction going forward because of the infrastructure funding from the federal and state level, the housing that's needed, the affordable housing that's needed. Energy policy at the state level is going to cause a lot of commercial and then residential buildings to have to be retooled from natural gas to electricity. All of that means that we're going to need a lot more construction employees in the future than today. And so that's a great career opportunity with a lot of different pieces of that. We can talk about that later, but it all starts with an exposure to that in high school and the earning of certificates that can be used. And we do know that there's Pickens Tech in the Aurora area, but there's a long waiting list to get in there, and you can only drive so many minutes in a day to make that effective. And Aurora is growing much larger than the target footprint of Pickens. And the waiting list means many students cannot participate. This program is designed to be in an individual high school, so they don't have to leave the high school. So it's not competing, it's complementary with Pickens. So we want to make sure you know that right off the bat. And with that, glad to turn it over to Lisa to give you an update and with our ask of support to move forward with a pretty innovative funding idea to make sure that we can have these be sustainable programs in the long run.
Thank you, Michael.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. Can I verify that you all can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. As Michael said, my name is Lisa Seaman, and I am the Workforce Director for the Construction Education Foundation. As you can see on our first slide here, there is a great need in the construction industry in the state of Colorado. The goal of Careers in Construction Colorado is to engage students and their influencers and educate them as to the high demand, high wage construction jobs available in the industry through hands-on project-based learning. Careers in Construction is a program of the Construction Education Foundation. At the foundation, it is our mission to recruit, develop, and serve students of the construction industry by promoting innovative education pathways to rewarding careers in an inclusive, highly skilled, and prosperous construction workforce. As Michael mentioned earlier, the CIC program started in 2016 in one school in Colorado Springs. And as of now, in this coming school year, the program will be implemented in 60 high schools throughout the state. Each region of these schools is supported by the AGC of Colorado and the Construction Education Foundation and a specific home builders association that is in the region. The slide goes slightly more into detail about the need in Colorado. As you can see, we have 38,000 employees needed, plus we will have additional needs for retirement replacements. So we have a lot of ground to cover in the next 4 years. The hope is that the Careers in Construction program will help with that by putting hands-on skilled trades training back in high schools throughout the state. Again, this school year, the program will be active in both Vista Peak Preparatory and Gateway High School in Aurora Public Schools. In addition to hands-on skilled trades training, the CIC program also teaches students construction math. We have a rigorous safety curriculum, and important 21st century employability skills are weaved throughout the curriculum, both by the instructors teaching it and by the career navigators that we support going into the high schools to meet with students and help them further engage with industry, really exploring career options for them, both while in high school in the internship opportunity area and then post-graduation in employability and apprenticeships. Students at Vista Peak and Gateway also have the opportunity to take Careers in Construction programming as a freshman or sophomore and continue on into a P-Tech program, which would allow them to earn both a high school diploma and an associate's degree from the Community College of Aurora in construction management. and all of that is at no cost to the student. The CIC program is designed around the curriculum from the Home Builders Institute. It is a nationally certified pre-apprenticeship certificate training that provides portable, stackable credentials to students. The Colorado Department of Education has reviewed and approved the curriculum for career and technical education throughout the state. Construction Education Foundation invests $15,000 per school year per school to fund the curriculum, instructor training, HBI certifications, OSHA 10 certifications, and materials. Funding is primarily from construction companies and both public and private grants at this time. We receive multiple requests per year to begin programming in new schools, and part of being able to do that is finding sustainable funding for the schools that we currently fund so that no school ever has to be dropped from or age out of the program for participating for too long. A building permit fee allows every company in the industry to support this endeavor, to support construction education in their local district by participating when they pull a permit. We have a history of successful permit fees being implemented. It started in the Pikes Peak region in 2016 to support the rapid growth of schools down in that area. And recently, the Construction Education Foundation and AGC have worked with the city and county of Denver to support Denver public schools through building permit fees as well. And then this slide just goes into a little bit more about how the process works. You can see that the fee is an opt-out voluntary fee. Money is only to be used for funding construction programming in Aurora, and again, would allow us to have sustainable growth of the programming. Residential permits are $25 and commercial permits are $200, and all are for new builds. And then this slide, we can take questions on. It also has our contact information. I encourage you to jot down our info. We're always happy to share stories of success in our programming and provide updates on enrollment, certificates, internship and employment placement, and then any other program metric which might be interesting to the council. We work with schools in many different districts, and we provide individualized reporting for schools in those districts for meetings such as this throughout the school year. And then at the end of the school year, when we have more concrete internship and employment numbers, and we would love to be able to provide that information to you guys as well moving forward. And that's actually the end of my slideshow. I'm sure that Michael will have more to add, and there will probably be several questions, so we'd love to move on to that.
Michael, do you want to add, or do you want to do questions first, or?
I would just simply say that our request, we know that there is some work in altering your building permit fee collection system, but that's the partnership that we're asking with the city of Aurora is to do that. And then the second thing is having to create an MOU between the city and the Construction Education Foundation, knowing of the support from the HBA and the AGC, so that the funds are restricted to the intended purpose of supporting the APS schools. And that's the partnership that we're asking for your support. And then moving on to implementation. And you would be the third city in the state after, well, the 4 cities that are involved in Pikes Peak Regional Building Department, and then the city and county of Denver, to support in this way and ensure the sustainability of the programs going forward, and get ready for the construction employment need that's in front of us.
Thank you. And before we take questions, I just want to say this actually concept came to us in 2020. Obviously, that was the year of the horrible pandemic. And this committee did move it forward, and I don't know, everything got lost during that year. So it's not the first time that we're seeing this, and we appreciate you coming back and making this request. And I think I fully support it. I think it's a great idea for us. And, you said we'd be the third, and, we're the third largest city, so that makes sense, right? So I'll go ahead and open it up for questions or comments from our other council members. Councilmember Sundberg, Lawson, any questions on the fee? It is an opt-out fee.
Councilmember Bergan, thanks for the presentation. It seems very practical. I see the need. It's quite a gap in available labor. Help me to understand the permit adjustment piece again. Is this for homes that the students would be working on? I missed that. I wasn't listening too well on that piece.
It's basically any new build, whether it be a commercial facility or a residential home. Whenever our developers, our builders are building, they have to pay a permit fee.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they're paying their normal permit fee, but then they have this, they can do this $25 if it's for residential home new build. They can contribute that $25 that goes straight into this program. If they don't want to participate, they would opt out. So I don't know if that helps explain it.
Simple option. Okay, I see. Thank you.
Michael, do you want to add anything, or Lisa?
That was perfect, Councilwoman.
Yeah, agreed.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yeah, I fully support this. This is a great program, and I'm glad. Is there any intent to maybe reach out to other schools, or you're just going to kind of see how this kind of plays out with the couple schools that we have, and then maybe reach into Cherry Creek School District? And because I see a need in a lot of places, and I see a lot of kids that probably would really, really benefit from this program, because a lot of them don't want to go to college, but they could really see a good income level sustainability in working in construction, and maybe even gravitating toward getting their own company. So I really see this as a really good program. So, but just asking about the expansion.
Sure. We do see a lot that this generation has an entrepreneurial spirit. So we talk a lot about owning your own business, which is really fun. So the two Aurora schools that we have this year, Vista Peak and Gateway, are really the start of the programming in Aurora. We're hoping to grow it.
Okay.
They are part of our high school programming, which will be in 19 schools in the Denver metro area. So we are involved at the Cherry Creek Innovation Campus down at Cherry Creek, where their students come, and I know that they have students from a pretty large footprint, and then they all go to that innovation campus for their career and technical education. So we are involved there. And as I said, we've been at Vista Peak this will be our 5th year out there, and our 1st year at Gateway. So we're really excited to expand the programming in Aurora. We work real closely with Jennifer Jasnowski and her team to implement this PTech, and then look at what the growth looks like throughout the district.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yes, Councilmember Sundberg.
In the programming within the schools, what's the minimum age requirement to participate?
So the students just have to be freshmen. It is possible to actually do the first round of programming, which we call the PACT core. So that's pre-apprenticeship certificate training. And it covers building trade safety and first aid, and does include an OSHA 10, construction math, tools and materials, and then employability skills. That can actually be implemented in middle school as well in 8th grade, but we haven't really had any middle schools yet ready to take that leap. They do more exploratory, and then the actual certification piece seems to happen in high school, but it is as low as 9th grade that students can participate.
Thank you. I've done some work in some truancy remedial stuff to try to get kids in school. And some of these young people, even as young as 14, don't want to go to school, but they want to work in some fashion. So I think
Right.
Attract young people to get to school to learn something very practical, perhaps.
Yes, and the opportunity is there. Aurora does have a pretty robust program with internships as well. So they are able to get student certifications, which then really opens doors for them to be able to work in the industry and have connections, have mentors, which can help guide them along. So we love to encourage students that maybe feel like school is a little bit too inside the box for them to give the programming a try, because it really does open up a whole new world of possibility.
That's great. I know Advocates for Children, or CASA, is directly involved with some truancy programs, and it could link up with some of the young people that simply don't want to go to school.
Absolutely. We would love that. That would be a great way for us to increase our numbers and increase the number of construction pipeline employees and benefit the lives of some students.
Great.
And I had just one question on, you said it's about $15,000 to implement per location. So as we're accumulating these permit fees, it stays in Aurora, right? So Aurora businesses or developers, builders that are paying into that, it stays in, I would assume, into a fund, so that eventually we could, as Councilmember Lawson asked, expand it to other schools.
That is correct.
Okay, very good.
And
you know,
Councilwoman, I would just add to that, that would be the subject of the agreement between the Construction
MOU.
Education Foundation and Aurora. So I imagine that would come back for you to see that before it was approved.
Okay, very good. And I was just going to say,
I'm
a
sorry.
lot of these trades, you know, HVAC and electricians and whatnot, make a really good living right off the bat with no debt. So that's
Correct.
important.
That's our biggest marketing piece, especially, you know, being lucky enough to be in Colorado with the demand that we see. We share with our students right off the bat, it's high demand. You'll always have a job. Even if you do choose to leave the state for some reason, we don't know why people do that, but they do. And you'll always have a job no matter where you go. It's high skill. No one can take that away from you. You know, in the age of Chat GPT and AI, that will never be able to take over for a skilled tradesperson. And it's high wage. You can make a great, really successful living in the trades.
Very good. So for staff, our next step, I guess, moving forward, maybe Laura, you can address, because obviously we have to be able to implement this within our software to do the opt-out permit fee. And then obviously we have to do the MOU. So those looks like the two next steps.
Correct, Councilmember Bergan. So I did want to mention, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we were working through a conversion with our Amanda software. And so we're actively looking at the technology mechanism to achieve the outcome that's being requested. It may look a little bit different on the technology side, but ultimately will still result in the same outcome of the dollars being received by the programs in Aurora Public Schools. So we'll work closely with the team on those tweaks in our systems to make this work, and certainly through the MOU or agreement to solidify the arrangement.
Right, great, very good. So in terms of, I mean, the committee obviously is supportive. We'll move this forward. And so timing wise, we want to try to get this done as quickly as possible.
Yes, we are working towards that. We already have a solution in mind, and we're working through administratively on the back end what's needed to get that done. So I anticipate this will be sort of in the next couple of months.
And then it would have to come to full council.
As a formal agreement, yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, thank you, Lisa and Michael, very much. Excited to partner with you and hopefully get this off the ground very soon.
Thank you very much for having us this morning.
Thank you. And I know Morgan is on now too. So I'm sure he thanks you as well. And we'll make ourselves available to talk about the MOU and learn more about the technology solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. And so next is the reports from committees. And I see Aurora Chamber of Commerce. Naomi has a report. I didn't know. Oh, Jonathan, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yes, please. I'm sitting in for Yuri. He's at an aerospace business mission. I do want to say we're very supportive of what Michael and Lisa have proposed. So very excited about this program. It's great for the students, good paying jobs, and it fills the much needed workforce gap. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, Naomi.
Good morning, everybody. Council, I appreciate you guys taking a few minutes. It's my first PED meeting. It's very overwhelming. It's so exciting. You guys are doing so much. So we just wanted to make sure that we came on and let everybody know about Kevin's retirement. President CEO after 28 years is retiring from the Chamber of Commerce. On August 16th, we're going to have a proper retirement party for him out at Heritage Eco Bend, 5 to 7. So if you can make it and wish him well on his way to retirement to go ride his bike or play some golf, travel. Who knows what he's going to do? He won't be too far. He'll still pop in from time to time, but definitely looking forward to retirement. I will be stepping in as the interim president CEO So you'll probably see me on this meeting more often and kind of stepping in until we make some further decisions. But I just wanted to make sure that we touched base with everybody, let them know formal announcements and invitations went out yesterday. So check your inbox. And if you didn't see it, then consider to say yourself invited. We'd love to see you there.
And
And
you said the 16th. I thought it was the 15th.
it's the 16th.
Am I wrong?
No, I think I'm pretty sure it's because we were trying to do it on the 17th, but
Okay.
yep, nope, it's the 16th, Wednesday.
Okay. And unfortunately, that is during the city water tour. We have
Oh, bummer.
a water tour, so I don't know how many council members. I think a lot of them are going on the water tour, but
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind. You know, like I said, he's not going too far, so he'll peek in from time to time. You guys will probably see him more often than not, so
okay. Anything else?
that's it. That's all I
Well,
want to make sure you touch base.
congratulations to you.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you guys. This meeting was exciting. I'm making notes as fast as I can, so pretty interesting.
Very good. And I see Morgan has his hand up. Is your little girl going to make a statement to us?
She may. Sometimes you get a little shy.
Construction.
But just wanted to chime in just from the residential side. Really appreciate the city undertaking this program. Really important seeing the impact that it's already had at the Cherry Creek Innovation Campus, and really happy that we're going to provide some added support in Aurora as well. So thanks again. I'm working from home today. My wife had twin boys over the weekend, so
congratulations.
Yeah, so thank you very much. But really appreciate it. And then I had a couple of other meetings that I had to jump off and then jump back on. So really appreciate the AGC kind of carrying the water for this particular PED meeting, but really appreciate your support, and obviously full support from the residential side as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Tell your wife congratulations.
Will do. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Councilmember Bergan.
Okay. Any other reports from any of the other committees? Don't see any. And our next meeting is scheduled for September 13th. So any last minute comments, council members, Lawson or Sundberg?
May I?
Yes, please.
This is slightly off topic, but it is related to planning and economic development. In our last council meeting, with our lively discussion around economic planning, the mayor brought up the need for like a truck stop or places to park for a lot of large trucks happening probably in Ward 2. And a former council member chimed in through text saying that Bob Oliva was working on something like that a couple of years ago. So I wonder if Bob could provide a brief answer to that.
Sure. Basically, we had gone out and looked at every site between where 225 hits I-70 all the way out to Bennett, and had started talking to landowners and see whether or not we could either convince them to allow trucks to be parked there and or lease the land and do the same. It turns out, though, that converting a raw piece of land to truck parking costs some real money. And so we were doing some research on how much it would cost and whether or not we would be participating or whether we were just asking folks to create these parking lots on their own. And we were trying not to charge to park in these parking lots. We just wanted to be very convenient for folks to just pull over and park there, give them no reason to not go there. But with the expense of actually doing them, we're not sure how to make it inexpensive to do it, and therefore, or whether we put up the money.
Hey,
On
Bob.
top of that, we actually, at the entrance we actually came up with this whole multiple truck stops for the final entrance to the Aerotropolis Parkway. So there's two things going on. One's the final product and then the temporary product. I think Laura had her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Muted.
And Andrea has her hand up too, so I don't know who wants to go.
I was muted. I apologize.
Oh.
Councilmember Sundberg, so I wanted to let you know that Jacob Cox, myself, and Jason Batchelor have been meeting with several developers over the last month and having conversations with them about truck parking and short-term, midterm, long-term solutions, recognizing the demands on the roadway and the parking demands for semi-trailers overnight. And so we're actively looking at options and solutions around that. So it's something that's in motion.
And I was wondering, is there any way to get some funding from, is there like a trucking association that they all belong to?
I do know that there's the National Association of Truck Stop Operators. I think it's Truck Stop and Travel Plaza Operators.
Okay.
Oh,
This is something you'd hope the private industry could have figured out a while back and saw the need, like a Flying J or whatever.
We've been in contact with every one of them. They all know about this.
Okay, and it's a future, we could talk more about this outside the meetings, but even combining like a supercharging station, being proactive about whether for vehicles or, semis are going to be going that way as well, I'm sure.
Andrea, did you
Yeah.
want?
I just wanted to say that this is a subject that came up at ICSC. We've been talking with developers and property owners, and as Laura indicated, we and development assistants have been talking to various developers and trying to encourage incremental additions to the parking problem as it goes along. But while it seems like it happened overnight, it didn't. This problem hasn't happened overnight, and we're scrambling to find both incremental and long-term solutions. So, and Laura is taking the lead. So.
And there is one other potential solution in that one of the problems that is causing all these folks to have to park is that these warehouse companies will not let that truck enter their parking lot until it's ready to unload. And so if it's backed up a little bit, they tell the person, don't even come into our parking lot, go somewhere else, don't come in. And so they're pushing all of these trucks out into the public, and they have to find some place to park. And of course, there's if you've been driving for more than 8 hours, you have to stop on a dime wherever you are, or you could lose your license. So there's all kinds of things like that are also adding to this.
So maybe we should talk to Amazon.
Actually, Costco was the big one that we heard, but and we had talked to California, where they're also having this problem with Costco. So just add a little more to this.
Well, maybe more to come. I imagine at a next PED meeting or update.
Yeah, I think Laura's on top of this now. It'll be Laura handling this.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, thank you all very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks.